All right, welcome to a special Today in EVE Online. We're talking about a new feature called Hypernet Relay, and we have it up on screen for you. And if you haven't seen this before, it's only on the test server. It's not actually in the game. We don't know if it will enter the game or when it will enter the game, but it is basically a way of trading from player to player expensive items by breaking it down into a lottery. And so it brings back the game of chance, which is something that was banned by CCP about 2 years ago. At least it was for inside the game. But when this is an actual sanctioned game of chance, essentially it is an interface that it allows you to gamble from one player to another with CCP taking a little cut. And we'll explain all of that and how it works. You've probably heard it if you heard Talking in Stations earlier tonight. There's a group of guys and gals in here, and we're going to talk about it for the next hour. Okay, floor is your guys.
The next hour?
Whatever you got.
Well, I mean, I guess online, yeah. But
whatever you got
we'll
stamina for.
About it for days.
All right, first of all, can somebody break down what it does?
Lost you there.
Explain it.
Okay, I'll explain it because I played with it earlier this morning. Essentially, let's say I'm a player and I want to produce a lottery for 8 people or 16 people or 64, or I think 512 is your max people, right? That's how many entry points there are. I would take my ship, drop it into this interface, and then say I want to give out 8 tickets, and then I put the total amount that I want. So let's say it's $1 billion, and it would divide the billion by 8, and that's how much each ticket would cost. Then players have access to that through the menu, through their side, and they would buy up those tickets. And once all the tickets get purchased, the lottery kicks off, and that's the blue
He's
thing.
Talking. We just can't hear.
You guys can't hear me?
It breaks
No,
out
you
for some
kinda cut
reason
off.
with Discord. I think it's the same thing that happened to me on Reddit.
Oh, okay, hold on a second.
A few moments later.
So, how's this? You guys can hear me now, I bet.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so what happens after you put out 8 tickets for your 1 billion ship, it breaks the tickets down to a price that people can afford, which is a good thing because now you have a really expensive ship that's worth $1 billion, and now somebody only has to pay like 180 million for it, for the chance of getting it. And so it's
for a chance.
For a chance, yeah. And so then once all those tickets are sold, the lottery goes off, and you end up with one winner, and that person gets the ship. Now, in order for you to produce this, to begin, the seed that you need for this is sold from the marketplace. That thing is called a what?
Hypercore.
Hypercore. So the hypercores are sold on the market. You buy them with ISK, I believe. You can buy them with ISK. But to buy an original core, you have to use Plex. Is that right?
Yeah, so it's like when you buy Plex, with cash, like the original kind of the origin of Plex is via cash from CCP. So the origin of these are going to basically
for them.
Got it. So
Yeah,
you
so
can
some
either
point-
buy your own cores and have them yourself, and you buy those through Plex, or you can buy the cores that somebody else didn't want off the market, just like Plex. So it works in that way. So the point is that this is player-to-player game of chance, and there's a lot of emotion about it. What are some of the? We'll go over some of the pros because I think a lot of people here have the cons covered pretty well. Anyone know what some of the pros are?
Yeah, for example, we have like our annual Christmas party on our corp. So this is a great way to get like a Titan blueprint that you want to raffle between all the members of the corp. This is going to be a great way to do that. And you could, if it's private, and you can have a link that you can just use inside the corp, you could actually just put a small number on it, and this could be a great way to raffle things between your corp mates on a low basis level of entry of money.
This also
Oh, for
opens
sure.
up the floor for abyssal mods or extremely rare items. Just as an example, things like AT ships or very slow moving faction or DED or officer mods, things that don't really move that often and have huge requirements on the market, right? So, this is a chance for them to be moved in a way that normally could take months, maybe never, you know. So especially for abyssal spaces, opens up the abyssal mods some.
So that was Juvenis. That was Juvenis first, and then that was Lichgrave that just talked. So those are two of
Yep.
the pros. I also think it's gameplay, right? Like it or not, it's a thing to do. You do it in a station. You can only do it in an NPC station, which is interesting because that means that deep space, you'd have to find an NPC station. Actually, they don't exist anymore. So you can't do this in deep
No.
space.
You can blink or gamble on anywhere, but you can only create items on stations, I think.
Yeah, I believe that's right. Like you could only create the these
Hypernet Relay.
these Hypernet Relay kind of things in a station, not in like a Citadel, for example, but an actual station. But you can play it anywhere.
But the item does have to be in the station, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
It has the same mechanics as contracts, I guess, where you can buy them anywhere, but the item has to be on the station in order to be created.
But in order to create it, you need to be in a station, which means, walk through this with me. You couldn't really create a contract for a Titan, could you? Unless it was in LowSec.
Unless it was in a station, correct?
Or as the picture shows in Jita.
Yeah, well,
it could be an NPC. I think it could be an NPC nullsec too. I haven't tested it out.
Yeah,
I've been in NPC nullsec. It works.
Interesting. So you might have gambling areas like NPC Delve.
Yeah. So places like that.
Venal.
Jita, Perimeter.
Well, no, you wouldn't have a Titan though on sale there.
No, but you
NPC
could have,
null space. Well, NPC null stations are going to be like Mos Eisley.
I do believe there are
like
things
that
like Fortizars and Roracles on the Jita market. So things like that, stuff that's in there.
And good thing is you're gonna see more rotations on very rare items. We were talking about that earlier. We're gonna see rotations between aligned ships, aligned tournament ships, or rare T2 blueprints or rare items. You're gonna see those more on this type of trading, I guess, chance trading, and that could be a positive thing to see more items being moved around from people to people. That could be stuff there.
You also have the opportunity for people who say can't easily get rid of their items, who want to liquidate their items. Maybe you left null recently, and you can't really get rid of the items, or they're in low sec or something, and it's just hard to reach. You could just raffle them off and liquidate the asset in a way that wouldn't be as easy normally under normal circumstances. So getting your money back for your items is easier.
The thing I haven't found yet is if you can limit it to an alliance or an organization. Like for example,
there's a private, and the private is based off of the link itself. So you cannot limit it to an alliance or organization specifically, but if you only share the link to the buy or to the auction to the raffle just to your alliance, then of course just your alliance will only know about it. So
if
minus the
it
1,000
doesn't
spies.
get out,
Right, minus the 1,000 spies.
Yes, but
And
it
that
would be
all
amazing if
exploded
it
in
had.
chat.
But it would be amazing if you had like an alliance, like limit to alliance or limit to corp, or set for this alliance or set for this corp. If you wanted to give somebody some random alliance that, for example, for us, the Spanish-speaking community, we could give out. For example, we wanted to give out like 10. I don't know, like 10 caracals to random people on a starter corp, and we wanted to give those away from another corp, and we could start that raffle from there just by adding the name. That would be amazing. That could be.
Yeah, yeah,
It's
yeah.
a
Things like that.
system that is used on Citadels and stuff. The listings. I'm being terrible. Don't worry about me.
So it is. I mean, so I think one of the mechanics is you can set your own price, and that price dictates the amount of hypercores that you pay, and also dictates I believe currently it is 5% broker's fee that is paid, and I assume that's removed from the game. If somebody can just clarify on that. I assume that is a 5% broker's tax that is paid, just like the market stuff, where that's removed from the game.
Yes, it's a direct tax. I don't think it's linked by any skill. It doesn't reduce. I haven't seen anything in the mechanics that any skill could reduce that 5% fee. I think it's a flat fee. And the other thing I haven't found out is that you have a limit of, depending on the item that you're going to sell, it takes the base price of the item and it assigns how many cores does it is going to use. I'm using right now an example of a blueprint of a type, and it uses 100 cores on this indistinctly of the price that I'm giving it, given to the Titan blueprint. So I could give it 5 ISK or a million ISK or 10,000 ISK, and it's going to be 100 ISK, 100 cores,
Cores.
and
Yep.
yeah. But if I increase the price, for example, let me do a price increase, like 4 billion right now. It uses more cores, 721 cores, and if it's, let me put a flat number right there. So if I say like 100 bill, it uses 15,000 cores. So it all depends on the base price, I guess, of the item and on the end price that you're willing to do
And the
the
markup.
raffle.
Yeah.
You have to put down you have to put down some value into it, to actually start it up.
Yeah. But and I think it's important to be mentioned that you can have this raffle go as low as ISK as you want. So it can truly be a raffle, almost a free raffle,
Yeah.
with the lowest point being, say, 0.01 ISK, right? That's being the lowest end.
Yeah, it depends entirely on how much or how much you're going to value the item that you're raffling off.
If you choose to value it at all.
Yeah.
The other cool thing I found I like about this items that they don't run for long. They just run for 3 days. So it's not like you can do a long con with this or whatever. It's just 3 days. And if it after 3 days you don't, uh, if it doesn't satisfy the order or the raffle in this case, people get their money back, which is a good thing. And who loses the ISK? I think it's going to be the one making the raffle that loses the 5%.
Yeah, they don't get the cores back.
There's that, but there is also a case of I think people have tried it out that you can buy your own tickets that you put up.
Yes.
So as a creator of these things, if you have like 3 or 4 tickets left over and you just, for some reason, they don't seem to be going, like, you can go and buy them up yourself.
Yes, you can front the cost, which does give you as the item holder a chance to win the item yourself.
Yeah, but it's not
Which-
something that you could game.
Yeah,
That's
well,
interesting.
yeah, it is a truly random number, so yeah, it's not inherently gameable. But
Cloud, I turned you up because they say, "Hey, English guy, speak up."
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah,
Thank
now
you.
you're registering in the yellow. Good.
Yay.
It's really weird. I hear you perfectly fine, but in Lichgrave, you sound about the same volume, but you guys just aren't registering the same for some reason.
or we're not. Interesting.
Good, you're good. Sorry I interrupted.
That's okay. Where was I? Right. So you can't technically game the system. Of course, you can buy out more tickets than 50%, which on a technical level does give you more than a 50% chance of winning, but there's
More than
always the chance,
a
right?
more than 50% chance of winning does not guarantee winning.
Right, it doesn't guarantee it, and so you could technically, if you're lucky, get away with paying nothing and just making ISK. Potentially, but it's not an easy thing to do.
Yeah. Plus the fact that like the internals of how this works, the percentage chances and the way that the random number generator is generated, using whichever seed like your that CCP is using in terms of RNG gens.
I believe it's
Like
some MRT,
that's
RMC, some acronym that is apparently very, very difficult to crack. It's not.
yeah. Well, it's
Sorry,
you-
I wanted to correct you, MacLeod, on something. You can bet
Mhm.
on your own. I'm actually
can't?
testing it, right? Yeah, you can bet
Well,
on your
I mean,
own.
Yep.
I would say that like maybe the original owner like or the creator of it can't.
That's why we
Maybe
all have a
can't, but
million
like
characters.
but yeah, we all have a
So-
million characters. We all have alts, so it's technically possible. I
So
guess.
if you want to roll the dice, seeing as the tax cost is 5%, what you do is you buy up, say, 95% of the tickets. The people that buy the other 5% will pay for the fee,
This is Lux.
and then you win the item. They pay the fee, and you get it probably 99 out of
It's
20 times.
probably yeah, but
Well-
there's a chance that you don't.
on the table, it's 95 times out of 100, right, or 48 times out of whatever.
It's a
But
quick
actually
way to
allows-
make 5% of your money.
Well, you don't make 5%, but basically you can set these up to gamble against people that
Yeah,
you
but
will
you
win
can
your
sell it
own auction.
for you can sell, like, you can buy 90% of the items. It pays for the 5%, and people have a 10% chance, and you have a 90% chance of winning.
Yeah, and in that case, it's not actually about the item that's on sale. The item is just collateralizing a form of betting. I've got a long list of complaints about the system.
Yeah, Lux,
if anyone wants to
you
listen
don't
to me
like this
whinge.
system. I want to hear your complaints about it because you brought up a bunch of interesting stuff.
I have a big list.
Let me hear it from
Essentially
Lux.
Essentially what this is gambling. You buy a raffle ticket for an object, you go into the raffle with the other people that buy those tickets, and you have a chance to win something. This is gambling in EVE, run by CCP. They need to put some things around this to make sure that this isn't a problem for the players and a problem for CCP. If new laws come in that say you can't market a game anymore if it's got gambling in it, now CCP have to change the way that they're marketing the game to players.
Well, maybe they suppress this one item. Like, if the laws change, they can probably adjust. And apparently, this has cleared their lawyers, so they're in the clear legally.
But that's the thing, the law is always catching up, especially on this topic.
Well,
so if a country says we have to protect our minors, you've got children in your game, so either you have to make sure that you've not got minors in your game anymore, or we have to give it a rating that's going to stop you from distributing the game in our country. That could be a problem.
Yeah, and that's for me especially, it's an issue.
So
like if you run a corp and there are minors on your corp, like you have to do like even a public service on telling your guys, like, listen, there's gambling involved with this. Do you know what this is? Do you know what it does? Have you ever been exposed to this? Have you ever have your parents talk to you about gambling and what are the side effects and what is the bad thing about it. And it gives you added responsibility as a leader if you have minors on your organizations, that you have to see if they know about it.
Well,
If
I think there are more
CCP doesn't.
botters than there are minors in the game.
Yeah, but it only takes one, right? And you have to do,
Well,
if you only have one, then you have to do your service.
so
In
this
my
is
case, I
where
have like
this
four.
is where things kind of start to get a little bit interesting, though, because um, one, gambling exists in every game in different forms. It takes many different shapes. I mean, and Borderlands 2 has a very egregious example of that, where you literally can gamble the in-game money at a literal slot machine, and that game is rated T for teen. Okay, so
Star Wars Galaxy had gambling in
Star
it.
Wars Galaxy, and one, gambling in the PEGI system is PEGI 12. So anyway, so rating systems aside, this is gambling, right? So I just wanted to clarify that
Well, but
under the PEGI system,
Aknor there says that it's not gambling, it's RNG, random number generation. Is there a difference?
So
It's gambling with RNG in it.
Yeah, there's different forms of gambling, but gambling in and of itself, one, under legal definitions,
But
can be in T for teen games in this format, and can also exist in PEGI 12. So I just wanted to get that out of the way, just putting that out there, because
So it's not
the
illegal.
argument of minors.
It's not a legal
One,
challenge.
gambling exists in in almost every video game in one form or another, and two, under the legal definitions, under the guidelines of the video game rating systems, it's set to this level, right? So I just wanted to point that out there.
I think we can all see that regulators are starting to catch up to gambling in games. It's a discussion that's on the table now,
And rating
they're
systems will
going
adjust.
exactly. And is that going to be an impediment to the game? It's something to consider.
Yeah, but I think we should get to the point that we all, I think, are avoiding. Is this something that we wanted? No, I didn't want this as an Eve player.
Did you want Blackout?
Well, I didn't want that either. But this, but this takes. This looks very polished and looks like it had a lot of work on it, which is, as a feature, it looks great. It looks very finished. But is it something that we wanted? And I could talk for myself. It's not. And I know many people. I ask many people here if it's something that they personally wanted, and people say no. And this is the con. For me, this the central con right there. This is not something individual players wanted. Maybe it has a social aspect to it, and it has a certain appeal. I can tell you that. But as a personal, viewed personally, it's not something that I wanted. That's just, I wanted to open the.
When you look at Blackout, like CCP have come and said this was an experiment, and we were interested to see how players' behaviors would change. So I'm assuming they're going to monitor the players' behaviors around this experiment. And I think what they'll see is there'll be some players that basically abuse this. Not, and I don't mean cheating, I mean they abuse it because they get addicted to it, and they'll spend too much time on it. They'll start feeding Plex and real money into it, and it will be a problem for some people. And so at the end of their experiment, when CCP turns around and says, yeah, it was really, really popular, and for some players it was too popular, they're going to have to put some sensible limits on it for the players, including things like being able to turn it off, maybe being able to opt into it, maybe being able to hide the links that we're going to see to these gambling things that are going to be all over our local chat. There's other problems too, like the ticket price when you buy one for the lottery. It doesn't actually tell you the total value of the item properly. It tells you the number of tickets and the ticket price, and it expects that the players are going to calculate that in their head. Like it's basically set up again to rip off the participants who don't put the effort in to calculate the true value of the thing that they're betting on, because it doesn't just tell them up front.
Well, couldn't they do the math though, saying I bought the ticket for, let's say, 100 million, and there's 8 tickets? Couldn't they do the math in their head? This thing is worth 800 million.
Yep.
You don't even need to do the math.
If I tell you that I just put something up for 512,000 ISK per ticket with 512 tickets, how much is that thing worth, Matterall?
Okay, guys, stop for a second. You gotta understand. But items value is, for most items, the value of them is subjective. You can't say, a Drake is worth 50 mil if it's worth 40 mil, right? Like CCP can't price an item based on regional. No, they can't, because the regional values
I can buy
can be
something
manipulated.
straight off the market and then put it on there for an inflated price, knowing that CCP has made a conscious decision to design this to not openly tell people what the actual expected return on their bet is. This is how lotteries function. Expected return is the amount that you can expect to get when you multiply the probability of you winning by the value of the thing that you're receiving. And what you'll see with this is people gaming the fact that people don't calculate the expected return. This is how lotteries work. Your expected return on a lottery ticket is minuscule, but they know that people won't calculate it. So they overvalue the tickets.
You're not making sense.
This is how
he is kind of making
work.
sense, but like it's not really the kind of, I don't think it's not really a material.
I'm saying,
like, if you
CCP need to put
you're going towards
blah 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 protections, blah, blah, blah. What do you actually
this,
mean?
including
you think they need to do?
Saying what the total price is, making sure people aren't abusing it, making sure that it's not available to minors to gamble on it.
Stop. So the total price of what? The total price of the blink?
The total price of the item that you're betting on. It's called the expected value of your bet.
What do you mean the total price of the item?
The expected value is the probability.
How much is a AT ship?
Now, let me clarify you something. You have two ways of, first, you can look the item on the market and you can know if it's a market price item. You can know if it's a market price item. You can compare with the Hypernet price. And then it's a simple search like you do on a market. And then you have your blink value. And that's it. Like you have 40 links, or you pay so much for a link, and that's it. Anybody who knows a little bit of math can do it.
And I would like to know.
My point is very simple, Billy. You have the estimated price there. So say there's a Raven on there, right? And there's 512 tickets. You can see that there's 512 tickets, and you can see that the price of each ticket is 1.1 million ISK each. Why doesn't this thing make the comparison between the market value and the total price that it's being put on there for? Why? The only reason I can think of is because it's intended to deceive you rather than protect you from being deceived.
And that's fine. This is Eve.
No, I'm sorry. You guys are too much nefarious shit in this stuff.
I will take this if you want, Billy. Like I can.
I know, like the reality, and I'm like, but like you guys are like, oh, it's nefarious. They're gonna deceive.
No. I agree with you, Billy.
Little ISK.
I agree with you, Billy.
Okay,
let me help you there.
Billy, why not put the total price on there? Why make that decision?
Why should I have the price of a Titan in Delve when I'm in Esoteria? Why should it tell me that?
All right, well, let me cut through this for a second.
Why should it even tell you the amount of tickets?
Let me cut through this for a second, because I think you're just looking at the same thing in two different directions. One is, if this is a market style thing, then it should compare regionally how much you're over the average to give you a warning, like a market does, right? If you buy a battleship for too much, it's going to warn you. But this is more like this can also be looked at as more like a contract, where there are no protections that way. And so I think what Lux is saying is that it's more like a contract that allows you to get scammed, and you should protect your players.
But actually, you can get the price of the market with only 2 clicks of any item. Like I'm seeing a Thanatos right now, and it has the little eye of the information. You just click that, and then just click view market details, and that's it. You can see the price of the item on the market just by 2 clicks.
And if you're concerned about, like, people not being able to do the math in their head, Like,
It's not that,
amazingly enough,
McLeod.
Lux,
It's
like there
psychological
is also
manipulation. There's a
there's also
well-known
a
scam where
it's
what you say
well,
is bid on this thing, and then you take their money, and then only the highest
Jesus,
bidder
man.
wins. And the scam works because what you see on the ticket price is much cheaper than the item above it.
well,
And they've recreated that system for this.
You
You know what's
buy
gonna be an amazing pro on this? Sorry that I'm jumping, but you're gonna sell corpses now. Like you could sell the corpse of any alliance leader if you wanted to, and you can.
Oh, cool.
Like
there's only 2 Matterall corpses out there.
Yeah, I'm
Shh,
seeing.
now you told
I'm
them how
seeing
many there
people-
are.
I'm seeing
Super
people blinking
try
corpses right
estimate
here.
the return on investment on that one.
Or an abyssal or a rolled abyssal mod, or there's items in this game that you just have an intrinsic value that cannot be estimated in any way. I mean, there's probably some actuaries out there furiously typing in the comments section right now telling me, well, if you do this.
I mean, why are there like on CC you've got marshals on there where they're like, oh, it's a billion ISK, and then you have a look a bit carefully at the smaller writing underneath where it says, oh, but there's 512 1 billion ISK tickets. So they're selling a marshal for 512 billion ISK.
Lux, but maybe that could be overcome with a good tutorial on how to use it.
Or they could just add a UI element that says the overall price
or it's
of the item, which doesn't.
Or it's not their responsibility
to the total price on there.
But it's not CCP's responsibility to protect you from other players, is it? That's a question.
If they create a Skinner box that encourages you to gamble, they have some responsibility to the players that use it. Yes,
to some degree, but I don't think that. I don't think that extends to the extent that you want, Lux.
I think some people can resist the urge to gamble, right? I would say the majority.
Some people can, some people can't, Matt. But like but it is a diagnosed kind of condition.
Generally speaking, my opinion on this is that people don't like it. That's even you can argue all the positive side, like it's a form for CCP to get in more money. It's a form of reducing people with a lot of money that can find a way to lose money. It has positive things, but is it something that people wanted? I don't know. I think not.
You're not going to sell. You're not going to sell me on only put in the things in the games that people want, because you don't know what everybody wants, and sometimes players don't even know what they actually want. They just know what they think they want at a certain point of the game development.
I mean, I can only go on anecdotal evidence. Like, I'm not exactly a fan of gambling myself, but even at Eve London, when we had the situations where we can speak to devs on various different things, anecdotally, I had a situation where we were just being involved in a conversation going on, and someone was basically asking one of the devs if they could bring back sort of a degree of gambling inside of Eve, because it was something that he enjoyed doing.
Poor guy.
So clearly there is a group of people out there that do kind of want that sort of thing.
There were corp lotteries, there were alliance lotteries, there was even lotteries open to the public. There was one big lottery that came around like once a year. It was a tradition in Eve, early Eve, and then it became more formalized with gambling outfits that did this on a daily basis. And then the history of that, it got all canceled. But was that a good part of Eve's history?
Well, it's just a missed opportunity, right? So they could have used this same UI, this same amount of work to make a region-spanning auction house for the things that you can't put on the normal market. Right. They could have used it for selling blueprints, which are fundamentally digital, and so they don't need to be tied to a location. So this could be a digital good distribution platform. They could have used it for...
aren't you at that point just distributing high-end items among the very rich? There was a point that Billy made, and he can make it again if he wants. If not,
I mean, this isn't
my point to that. The argument he's making
richer.
Here is this: in the end, all you're talking is saying they could have done X, instead they did Y. You don't like Y, so obviously what they did is wrong. But the reality is,
That's not what I'm saying. That's misrepresentation. What I'm saying is if you introduce gambling into a game, you need to put protections around it.
Okay, well, that's not what you were saying 5 seconds ago. You were talking about dev time and all a bunch of other stuff.
Well, that's the thing. They could have made an auction house. Why did they choose gambling? They could have made a distribution platform. Why did they choose gambling? They could have used it for wealth inequality. Why did they choose gambling?
Okay, so
why?
let's go
Because
back to what I was saying then.
They get a 5%
that I wasn't
cut.
misrepresenting you.
That's why, Billy.
So let's go to back to stuff that I wasn't misrepresenting you on then. So, yeah, you're saying, they could have done X, instead they did Y, right? But I need you to think about it like this. So what you're saying is they could have, made a regional auction houses or some shit. Like the market we have right now is the most advanced auction house in any game in ever, right? Like it is.
Look at the abyssal mods and contracts and tell me that.
Yes, don't get me wrong. There are exceptions to how it functions. There are workarounds to all those exceptions. So the only thing you're really gaining by putting all this amount of work into, now we have a market that has abyssal mods and used BPCs, etc., is those niche items are now tradable or usable or whatever. But now think about it like this. Now they've engaged in this activity. Now they have another revenue stream, and they have something that also adds something to the game for the people that are not worried about problem gambling, etc.
Hey, Billy, they could still take their 5% cut from a global auction house, right? So they could still count that plex, but without gambling.
And even have those items.
Still making money from activity in game. See my point
really,
yet?
Though. No.
Well, yeah, they can. It's the exact same system, right? So you have a global auction house, but when you use it, it costs more. Let's say it's saving 10%.
What do you mean a global auction house? Like, what are you talking about?
The point of the Hypernet Relay is you can see things that are in any region.
You can see the blinks, yeah.
You could do exactly the same with the contract system.
I think, Dunk and just McLeod now makes that point.
You can currently see all contracts from all regions. That's not currently an issue.
And that has auctions built into
it. Yeah, but what he's saying is the interface of the contracts is
the interface
the interface is 100,000 times better than the contract. So if each square of those were a contract, it would be easier to see what
I 100% agree. They could have spent all this time. They could have upgraded the contracts UI. What does that get them in the end?
It doesn't give them a new revenue
and it doesn't get them any more revenue. All it does is it acts as a slight quality of life improvement for the current players.
But isn't this like a contract in a way?
No.
No? Aren't you exchanging stuff?
Well, sort of, but you guys have prattled on that this is gambling for 5 hours. Like it's either gambling or.
Well, this is different. This is gambling. Only one is going to win, and many are going to lose.
Okay, so it's not contracts.
That's the argument. This is gambling. Almost everybody's going to win. Only one is going to lose, and CCP is going to get its 5% plus the little items that it's selling with Plex. So the clear winner is CCP, and the only one person who's going to win. Everybody else is going to lose.
It's important to understand the 5% they're taking doesn't gain them anything in the long run. That's just ISK.
Of course it gains them stuff because they're bought with Plex, which means they can count that Plex as revenue. That's
not how ISK works in this game.
It's bought
There's all kinds of ISK sinks in this game. No. They're going to make their money from the little token thingamabobs, but the 5% ISK cut, they don't make shit from.
Actually, they don't. I would just like to point out they don't make their money off of the little tokens. They make their money off the Plex, which gets converted to tokens. Unless there is going to be a way to purchase the tokens off of the website for real.
Well, the hypercores are going to come from the Nest store ultimately, just like Plex.
Yes.
Right.
And injectors.
So that means that yes, CCP are making money off this.
But there is already Plex
correct,
but in the system.
The only way for them to make money is for somebody to buy Plex or sub a subscription.
But you see,
changing hands within the economy does not change the money foundation for them at all.
No, but the thing is, every time you make one of these, right, you pay a 5% broker's fee, which is bought in these things they call hypercores, which are
That's where CCP makes
the price of Plex. Yeah. And what I'm saying is this could be an auction house that still uses hypercores. So you take the gambling out and they're still making money off the auction house.
An auction house for what?
For all the things
let me clarify.
see contracts.
Right now, with the math that I'm seeing, it's one hypercore for every 10,000 ISK, or every 10,000 ISK. So it's going to be a lot of hypercores that they're going to sell, because imagine items for billions and billions that they're going to sell. So they're going to sell a lot of hypercores, and those are going to be 5%. Bought on the. Yeah. In a way, it's similar to the 5%. It's pegged even to the 5%.
It's a money grab to turn the Plex that's sitting in the game idle into revenue that will be on CCP's books. The thing is, they didn't need to do this with gambling. They made a choice to do this with gambling, even though there are better things they could have done instead and still made that money.
Like what?
Like an auction house, like a digital good distribution platform.
Jesus Christ,
like
man.
Sponsor.
They're not going to make any money off some weird goddamn auction house when they already have an auction.
They could do sponsorship of competitors and teams in a tournament. They could do staking of LP. They could use it for all sorts of things, and they chose gambling.
None of those things are actual revenue. Those are actually expenses.
I've just explained to you how this earns revenue for CCP. They earn it through the hypercores, which are bought with Plex. Yeah. It's really simple, really. Jesus.
Yeah, but moving on from that, I can tell you this. You can have mixed feelings about this. And I get when Meteorol says, like, yeah, people want stuff and they don't want stuff. But this is truly something nobody was expecting at all. Like, nobody was expecting this. Nobody was expecting
the Meteorol Inquisition.
Yeah.
No, I know they weren't expecting it. Nobody was asking for it, except they were. They were years ago. 2 years ago when gambling was outlawed.
They were asking
from what it sounds like, they were asking at Eve London.
Yeah, they were literally.
So
asking.
It wasn't even.
Were they?
Like, maybe one person.
It wasn't even. Yeah. It was not even a week ago that this was a thing being discussed between devs and players. So to say that it's
maybe one or two people, but
would have liked more.
I mean, I was just saying
to make the assumption to make the egregious assumption that players would have wanted something else more than this is an overstatement. Frankly, you don't speak for the whole player base. One and two, this was not even a feature that we were guaranteed. So to make the statement that, frankly, the arrogant statement that this is this is not what the players wanted is wrong. Really is.
I said what the players would prefer was being able to use.
You're again speaking for the whole player base. You are one person.
None of us do, but let's just.
But in my case, I don't speak for one person. I speak for many.
12.
And not 12. It's more than 12.
How many people are in your corp?
Yeah, there's a lot. There's a lot.
Do they all agree with you? Is that why you can speak for them?
No, I don't. But if I was talking to them and everybody, well, where's this coming from? Okay. We didn't know about this. We didn't know this was coming. And everybody's shocked. It's mixed right now. I personally have an opinion on it, but I see the appeal that it could have. But in a way, I don't think this was what people were looking for in a way. This is just my initial... I'm still running the numbers.
But the thing is, like, it's. I mean, I understand that. You're in a position where you're having a lot of people who kind of say, like, oh, people didn't want this, etc., etc. We didn't want this. I mean, not to use a really kind of strained kind of anecdotal kind of example, but there's people. There were people who. Who had corps whose corporations said that they didn't want blackout, but they still got it. But like, just because the majority of the people in their corp didn't want blackout doesn't mean that the majority of Eve didn't want blackout. Like, and converse, in that same light, just because the majority of people in your corp don't see this as being
we don't have a say. We just have an opinion.
It's like, all right. The idea, though,
of the entirety of.
I think all right. I think what he's trying to say is that this was a feature that wasn't on the player's radar as something they really wanted. And all I'm going to say to that Is that a fair representation of what you're saying?
Totally. And you know what? If you ask me, you know what people are going to say, like, why are you doing this and not Spanish localization? That's the truth that they're going to ask me. Like, they're spending time on this, not doing a Spanish-speaking localization.
Different devs.
Yeah, I know,
different
but
devs.
Yeah, I know, but this is the argument that I get from people. Like, if you ask the most of the people I play with, they're going to ask, yeah, when is the Spanish speaking localization coming? And that's nice and all, when now we have a casino, but what we're waiting for is this. And that's our opinion. And I know we represent a very minute proportion of the game, but that's our 5 cents, I guess.
It comes down to the amount of dev time like required to do it versus the I guess what would be technically the business advantage of that that particular thing being done, like where it lies on that kind of scale. Is it like high amount of dev time but a low amount of business kind of advantage being put into the game. A lot of hours by multiple devs to actually put together, but you don't actually see anything.
All right.
From a business perspective, or is it low?
Let me cut you off, McLeod. Okay. I want to get to like this next point. We got 15 minutes left, and we'll finish at that point. But if you have, let me ask you guys that actually don't like the idea of this coming into the game, because I think you feel strongly enough about this that you don't want it in the game. It's not just like it's an inconvenience. You actually don't want it in the game. Even if you're not going to play with it, you don't want it in the game because you feel it doesn't represent the game very well, and it's dangerous for people who can be succumb to addiction to gambling. So let me ask you this. If CCP were to allow you to check a box to make this elective, would that make it okay?
I would settle for that.
I mean,
I don't think so, because I think that's too easy for someone to, to basically get into a situation where they may feel like they've got a handle on it, but they ultimately don't, because
they do have some safety. They do have some safety around it, McLeod. Just so you know, they have a little bit of safety around it that you can actually write CCP and say, don't let my account spend any money on this sort of thing, and they will take you off the ability to do it.
All right, let's go.
Yeah, but there's nothing in game actively that's saying that if you don't want this feature to be available to you, write to CCP at etc etc etc. Right?
If they really want to protect people from it.
But it's not in the game yet. So honestly, that
I think fundamentally, it's the addict, of course, won't say that they have a problem because they're an addict, right? So the question becomes, what is CCP going to do is CCP going to implement a team or a system that's going to monitor this to make sure that the people who do legitimately have a problem with this are being, seen through the numbers and actually getting the help that they so desperately deserve.
I think they will be
there
watching.
Are people who do suffer from this and who will be susceptible, and that can't be argued at all.
I think they will step in if somebody spends too much money on this sort of thing, or they see some abuse of it.
Well, that requires a degree of obviously understanding that CCP has the resources to be able to notice those outliers, those sort of like exceptions to the majority. But like, I don't think it's too much to ask CCP to at least have a few indicators on the actual window to say, like,
it will tell you, right? The new wallet will tell you how much money you've spent on these things in graphic form.
No, I don't mean on your wallet, but like literally on the actual the screen of of this particular feature. Like, if you feel like you're like you see it in other kind of.
Is it on the activity tracker?
In other sort of gambling websites and stuff like that. Not really an activity tracker kind of thing, but essentially, like, if you feel like you're if you feel like you're becoming addicted to to this feature, you might want to read this particular resource about gambling addiction or something like that.
Well, here's kind of a bottom line. This game is generally skewed to older men who are tech related, let's say, and they're not invulnerable. They're not generally. They're not invulnerable to gambling, but it seems like that's a group that could make a decision for themselves. Their brains aren't necessarily growing anymore, that sort of thing.
But we're not really talking about the general kind of player. We're talking about the outliers here. We're talking about the the people who aren't at maybe gambling or have a brain that's sort of grown up enough to be able to understand what's going on.
So then you have to think like, how many people is that? Does it outweigh the need of other people to entertain themselves with something that they could do in station they might actually enjoy, that might be relaxing?
But it only takes one, right? For it to be wrong. So I would settle if it had an off switch. If you can turn it off from the account, not from the interface, and it wouldn't even register that it's there if you're a parent or if you didn't want that by any reason, it could just be turned off. If that ability would have been there, that for me that would be amazing. That would settle my issues with it. Because you could be a parent or you could have a problem. You can go on any internet site and place a bet if you wanted to, if you had a problem. So if you could just turn it off because you like the game and you just want it off, I would settle for that.
Well, for actual gambling kind of websites, you do need to register yourself in a particular way to show that you're of an adult age or of a particular age with a associated real world kind of product like a credit card, for example. But what I would say, which would be really, really useful and really helpful, going along with what you said, by the way, would be if they want people to utilize it and to sort of to try it out and stuff like that. I'm totally fine with it being an opt-out situation, and to be able to go to you'll say your account page and opt out if you feel like you need to opt out because it might be a problem to you. But I kind of feel, because jumping onto the account page is as easy as sort of logging into the game as well. I kind of feel like if you've opted out of it, like you've physically gone in and opted out of it, even if it was like a parent who's gone in and opted out of it because they don't want that particular activity to be accessible by their children who's playing the game. Like, I feel like if you want to turn that back on, it needs to be done by CCP, and that needs to be a request that's put to CCP. So like to turn it so basically to opt out of it, you can do that easily, but to opt back into it should be hard.
Yeah, exactly right.
All right.
Well,
so
generally, when you do those kind of systems, you make it so that if you opt out, you can never opt back in. That's the only way to actually protect problem gambling.
Let's just make this clear, though, is that at the end of the day, the problem gamblers, look, there's so much we don't know, right? We don't know what everybody's triggers. We don't know if this system will actually even do that. There's so many psychological factors that are involved, ones that none of us truly understand, So let's take this from the perspective of, yes, there is a potential, 1% problem case, yes, and there should be ample resources available to those players so that they can better protect themselves, and that there are options that should be there for people who want to opt out.
I mean, if you really want to protect your users, you make it not opt out, you make it opt in, right? Because every study they've done shows that doing that is the superior way of doing it.
That's subjective. That's a case by case basis. We'll have
no, no, it's not case by case. If you look at donating organs when you sign up for a license in the UK, if they make that an opt out process rather than opt in, guess what happens? It just works.
Well, no, there's a lot more people who will, who won't be opting in because you have to actively do that.
I think you have to opt in.
But the other thing is, like, I understand where you're coming from, Lux. Is like, the best way of protecting people from that sort of thing is have it as an opt-in system. But at the end of the day, the dev time that was put into it isn't, it doesn't want to be, CCP doesn't want to just waste it. So the new mechanic, a new kind of
I mean,
feature, that kind of
we
thing.
can opt
You need
into
to
a
sort of
we
at
can opt
least
into a new
allow
map,
them
but we
to
can't opt
actually
into
have like a way
gambling.
of being able to, at least try the system out. At least show a degree of people being able to try it out at least.
Just let's
I
wrap up.
mean,
Last
we
comment. Go
can
ahead,
just
Lex.
start memeing about this, where it's you agree to PvP when you undock, and there will be you agree to gamble when you log in.
Yeah, so an opt-in, though,
I think
Lux
that's
would
going a bit
satisfy
far.
the having to opt into this system makes sense to you, Lux?
Yeah, I think so. It's the responsible thing for them to do if they want to put something like this into their game, where they've got miners, where they've got people that could potentially get addicted to it, where they've got really easy ways for you to buy Plex with your credit card once you have it set up as just the click of a button. You need to be aware that this is going to be a problem for some people, and not try to patch over the problem after they look at the data afterwards and see that it's being abused, but try to prevent it from being abused in the first place, because that's the responsible thing to do.
The responsible thing to do would give everybody the option, and if they don't like it, they opt out, and to also have systems in place to notice the outliers so that they can then, from then on, help assist those people, but to not prevent everyone simply because of the wrongdoings of a small group of actors. That is literally the needs of the few outweigh the needs of the many.
If it has an off switch, opt in, opt out, it's all the same to me, but it needs to have an off switch.
Well, like Billy said, and he probably knows a bit about this, you need to basically have people not be able to turn it on at all. If you're really worried about them abusing themselves, their financial situation, then they need to be excluded from it permanently. They need to be identified and excluded.
Well, generally, if somebody says, I would like to not have this service, it's a permanent ask. You never can undo it, because then but like the thing is with this thing, it's like, hey, I'm an internet gambler, da da da, I've got gambling issues. It's but it's like, can these people not like just play fucking internet poker and blow all their money too? Like,
What if it
one game
Billy,
away?
Billy, I'm gonna ask you this. What if it was just a preference issue? I don't like gambling. I don't want it.
I mean, there's
then they can
given the option to opt out. The options there, opt out.
I think part of the issue there that you're talking about, Billy, is like when you go to a gambling website, you know what you're getting into. When you play EVE Online, maybe you're not expecting a gambling kind of
well, do you think
sort of
anybody
mini
is
game to occur?
Like, it's pretty obvious it's a raffle.
Well, yeah,
it's pretty.
yeah.
I mean, it's pretty obvious it's going to be spammed
it's
all over
blatantly
local.
obvious it's a raffle.
If
there's no
ESRB,
question.
Yeah, but it doesn't say it's a raffle anywhere. It says a Hypernet Relay wealth creation resource exchange data.
If ESRB has the words gambling written on the little thing, and the Peggy box has the gambling box on it, I mean, right?
Well,
if you choose to ignore that, I mean, that's a different story.
Well,
I mean,
Lich,
if it says
the issue
heroin
is that
on the syringe and I inject it, does it make it less heroin?
Well, the issue, Lich, there is, when it comes to actually ESRB based stuff, like they're very, very particular on the, on whether the actions or the things that are basically people are sort of saying are gambling, whether it actually actually conforms to their very particular definition of what gambling is. And they're very, very strict and very particular about that. And if it doesn't
not an argument with me. That's an argument with ESRB. If you have a problem with how ESRB rates their system, you don't come after me for it. I'm not them.
Yeah, I know. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is like what I'm saying.
Just don't recommend.
You can be a concerned parent and that kind of thing. But what I'm saying is like when it comes to the ESRB, the way that they do it is, if it doesn't conform specifically to their their very rigid kind of guideline as to what what they consider gambling is, they won't rate it as gambling. So it won't appear as
Let me flip this on its head before we take off. Let me flip it on its head. What if a lot of people, because I hear there are a lot of people in the forums that are saying this is bad, gambling is bad, et cetera, like if you have enough pressure put on CCP to not let this enter the game, how do you think people who want it are going to react to that?
I mean, we can't stop them putting it in the game. It's going to be in the game, but they need to put some sort of protection around it.
Well,
they have
no,
to
that's
make
not the
sure
question that was asked. The question that was asked, if there's enough pressure, the hypothetical, if there's enough pressure and CCP does retract it, what about the people who wanted it? It's like the people who wanted Blackout to stay. They'll say their piece and we'll move on.
There's gambling, there's gambling websites all around the internet. Like you can go and gamble, to your heart's content there. Like, yeah, you may not be gambling ISK, but essentially, you can convert real money into Plex, into ISK. You're just not doing those particular kind of those particular steps, but the added bonus to not doing those particular steps is potentially being able to take money out of the system as well.
Answer your question, Metal. Well, people didn't like it. If CCP decides that because people didn't like it, they have to put it out, then the simple answer is people didn't like it, and that's it. I don't have a better answer for that. I wish it would be an opt-in, opt-out, whatever, just an off switch. If it has an off switch that you can, like a parent, turn it off. I don't care about the ratings. It all depends on your parenting. I don't think children under 18 should be exposed to any kind of gambling at all, or under 20 by that matter. And then you just have a little button that you just turn it off. Like that's not for you, and then that's it. And if you're the type of people who don't like gambling at all, like myself, I'm just going to turn it off. I'm not even going to look at it. I'm just going to turn it off.
All right, so
maybe turn it on on a special occasion because we have Christmas or something like that. But I don't want to have the temptation to be blinking on.
Okay, so if you do not like this feature, put an X in chat. And if you do like it, put a Y. Let's have a look. And from my own perspective, I do like the design.
We all have children, Metal. We all have children. Don't worry about
it. You need to turn around and be like going and saying like, guys, you need to be hitting X or Y in chat. For God's sake.
I said X, not ah.
All right. You can see. You must have discovered a video game.
What was X and what was Y? Now I don't remember.
X is for no, don't let it in or don't like it. It's interesting because it's I think it's kind of split, to be fair, right?
I mean, it's
the vocal minority is very vocal on this issue, and it's significantly overwhelming the people. People just aren't interested in speaking out for something like this because they know they're just going to get kind of, how dare you do this kind of thing. So it's just not one of the things where the vast majority of people are going to be like, yeah, I think it could be cool.
I want to talk positively about it, but I need to find the things that actually make it good. I played it and liked it, actually. I played it, liked it. I would actually play this in the game. I'm also someone that doesn't like gambling, and I fear for other people not, getting addicted to gambling. But I almost feel like this is not a game that should be as worried about it as, say, I don't know, the little cartoony games and stuff that my son plays.
I mean, I really like the feature. I said to some of the CSM members that it would be good if they had protections in there so people didn't develop gambling behaviors around it. And I was told I was concern trolling. So,
no, but you've been consistent about this, right?
I mean, even, pushing that kind of aside as a, that kind of thing. I did kind of want to touch on the whole ESRB license, sort of, and sort of, gambling kind of definition thing,
Wait a minute.
because
What about this other gambling thing, the RNG thing, creating those mutated products?
well, yeah. I mean, it's kind of it is similar. It has been brought up
You
in
guys didn't raise
the
a fuss
previous
over that, though.
conversation. There were
Yeah,
some
but
people
you know,
who did, but it was a very small minority of people.
but it's different.
But what I wanted to say with regards to the definition of gambling, and this is the reason why I wanted to bring it up, is because it could be something that that this system might actually catch you know a bit of an issue with for CCP, is there are various countries around the world, very very specifically the European Union are kind of leading the charge on this, is that they may be actually changing their definition of gambling. And the change to the definition that they consider to be, whether something's gambling or not gambling, may change to the point where something like this could be considered actually gambling, in which case CCP would have to find a license, or have to get a license to to basically run gambling, and it would have to actually
to
be
advertise it.
yeah, and also to be, to have it rated and notify everybody that there is gambling in this in EVE Online. But that's a thing that is potentially an issue down the road, if this does become a thing that's actually in the game, rather than just on Singularity, the test server right now. But just a potential sizable bump down the road.
Well,
I mean, you look at YouTube where they've had 10 million views on their trailer, and you're like, well, what if YouTube decides to bring in a policy where they don't want gambling advertised on YouTube anymore, and someone points out there's gambling in our game? No more marketing.
They can make that
YouTube.
adjustment later if it happens. Like, I'm not worried about the what if scenarios, because they can make an adjustment.
I mean, it's true. I'm just saying that, like, it's a fairly significant and involved process, because you're talking about, like, you're talking about very legal aspects of, you're conforming to laws, which isn't a thing to sort of to belittle. You know what I mean? They're very, very important, and they have very, very strict and very severe punishments and penalties.
Yeah, like, I don't
That's
know if
why.
they've done
That's
it yet.
that's specifically why I'm bringing it up.
I'm more basic than that, I guess. It's just a question of preference. Do you like it or not, or would you want somebody that you have to take care of, or for use it or not?
Oh, no doubt that there are big moral issues, like for certain. I'm just saying that there's also another facet to this that could be an issue as well.
So
Yeah,
Roast Muffin said, does CCP have a legal team? Surely they thought about this, but it is presumptuous to think that they haven't thought about it a wee bit. And I think you were correct. I think the word is out that the legal team did look at it and was okay with it.
I think they've also probably talked to, the legal team at Pearl Abyss, and also at NetEase as well, because they all have legal teams that have probably have a lot more experience in dealing with legal aspects of the sort of.
If you look at Google and you look at their policy around things that contain gambling, it says you have to get a certification from Google, and your ads must be targeted to the approved countries, have a landing page that displays information about responsible gambling, and never target minors. If you go on CCP's YouTube channel, does it currently do any of that stuff? No. Are they planning on doing any of that stuff? I doubt it.
Yeah, you can also say the same thing for 2K games as well. 2K games, the creators, the developers of NBA 2K20, who basically caught a whole lot of flack about the fact that they were promoting an absolute huge amount of egregious gambling and casino based sort of mini games inside of NBA 2K20, but they didn't have to. They didn't have to, sort of put anything regarding gambling or anything regarding, what you basically just said there, because the ESRB looked at the game and looked at the thing, what was going on, and came to the conclusion that their extremely strict definition and very antiquated definition of gambling, this stuff didn't actually conform to it.
I mean, things are picking
But
up
that's
on
what
this
might
now.
be changing.
Yeah,
I think
like
you guys
they'll
are
need to get
getting too legal. I think you guys are getting too legal. This is something that I will be more basic about preference. Do you like gambling in real life? No. Do you like to be tempted? You had a bad day at work and you find this and you start blinking, and before you know it, you spend 2 plexus on it, and it was because you had a bad day. Maybe you just want to turn it off. Have it. I'm just going to turn this off. I don't want to be tempted on it.
What?
I just want an
Okay.
off switch.
We got your scenario. What about a PCU?
Positively.
What about the PCU? What if this drives numbers up? Will players love it? I'm being facetious, but
I think there's positive scenarios where a raffle could be fun. And I wish that if this feature goes in, that it will incorporate ACLs in the future, because I can see some use cases where you offer raffles to your alliance or to your coalition.
Yeah. That's the few positives that I find on it. Corporations raffles and group raffles, and
so kind of a fair distribution, fair way of distributing something that's up for grabs.
If I could raffle a Titan at 60 million ISCA ticket, that's not too bad.
If you
or
can get
one ISCA ticket if you can only have one.
It's better than just
what if you got
giving it to the same guys over and over again,
Well, that's where that's where CCP kind of gets there. The idea of this being a wealth redistribution kind of thing, because ideally the idea of a raffle is you win something that's worth more, by putting a lot less money into it. So, the wealth distribution is essentially you're getting high ticket items for much lower cost.
Maybe preventing the owner from being able to purchase any tickets at all from his own raffle.
Well, there's an issue of alts, like when that comes to that, but yeah, there's always been issues with regards to.
I mean, alts are a problem in a lot of other places, not just here.
Yeah, but like it's a very Eve problem.
It is.
The only things I would add to it, I would add organizations, and I would add a limit 1 per player.
That's actually one thing you reminded me of something that I wanted to say, but we kind of got out of it before I actually figured out what I wanted to say. But like, if I could, one of the other kind of things that I would love to sort of see an implementation onto this is like implementation of ACLs, like access control lists. Like if you could combine access control lists with this, that would be really cool.
That would be very interesting.
Well, we'll see what happens if it makes it into the game. Then how people can creatively use it, what kind of adjustments they make to it, if any. But on its face, I think it's another part of gameplay that you can choose to participate in, barring anybody having disease. That's a different thing. But hey, it's something you could do while you're sitting there waiting for a fleet to start. It's something you could do as a profession. I love the idea of new professions that don't require you to actually go out and PvP, which scares the hell out of some people. So this seems like a pretty cool thing on that level.
Well, important question. Will TIS be sponsoring official TIS raffles?
I have given that no thought whatsoever, but I was thinking of gambling in stations.
It'll be a much easier and less convoluted way of selling a Titan.
Yeah, that's true. But I was thinking that of gambling and stations because I honestly think that this is going to be part of the streaming tradition of EVE Online now. It's so hard to stream EVE, and it's really only ever PvP. And now it could be something else like this.
What it could be interesting for streamers is that this is going to be a great way for you to give out loot in game, protecting the not crossing any lines. Like, this is a great way of giving loot if you get like, yeah, we're going to run a raffle and it's one ticket. Everybody can get in, and it's one ticket for one ISK, for example, or something like that.
It's a random distribution mechanism, which I think is pretty cool.
Yeah.
It could be used as a fundraiser too for Twitch streamers who keep losing ships. They can put up an item.
Yeah.
Their total raffles can be more expensive than the item, and then the extra ISK they make fund more ships to blow up.
Yeah. Or to fund projects, corporations, or forums, or whatever you want to fund.
I think my major problem with gambling, besides the ethics and the obvious addiction, is that it's just so gaudy, right? Like Las Vegas is so gaudy. Everything is so blingy and in your face and stuff. And I was told when I first heard about this that it was actually very gaudy and very blingy. And just when I went and used it, my experience was that it seemed like you were code breaking. It wasn't that big a deal. And I thought it was very well designed and it looked very beautiful. So it was a good looking thing.
That's the scariest part. It actually looks very nice. That's why I don't like it. It's tempting. You want to use it more. That's why I want to turn it off.
All right. Well, we'll leave it there. We're going to go ahead and cut the stream now. We will continue the conversation that's been here all day long and talking stations. Rise was in here with us along with Villy. So it was nice to have them both in here listening in. They want to hear what you have to say about it. So keep talking in public. And that is Discord, Talking in Stations Discord public. And jump in here in the public voice chat if you want to discuss this with guys. Sounds like everybody's really tired, though. But this went on all day long, so this is obviously a passionate topic. Thanks, everybody, for hanging out. Appreciate it. We will now raid. Let's see who's there. We could do a young Korean girl or Ashtarothi. Let's do Ashtarothi.
Korean girl.
Oh, man, spoiled for choice. Is Ash still streaming?
Let's use that Hypernet Relay and
is Ash still streaming? Because I don't see him on the.
Oh, did he break off? All right, we'll raid. You guys are about to raid someone you don't know, but she's awfully nice. Oh, she's on Google. I can't raid that.
Left arm is on.
Oh, let me grab that.
Uncle Online is doing some roulette wheels. Topical, right? So, I mean,
is Ash off? Because it says NA. So is he gone?
I don't see him on the list.
Yeah, guys. Happy holidays. Happy Thanksgiving for Americans. And look out for Black Friday. It's coming fast. I'm going to dump you off on this Korean girl that was playing EVE earlier. And enjoy. We'll talk to you guys later. Bye.